Hi there. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Stone, the editor-in-chief of CyberScoop, and I'm happy to be joined today by Renee Tarun, the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer and the Vice President of Information Security at Fortinet. Renee, thank you for being here. We have a lot to get to, but to start, why don't you tell us how the pandemic has impacted the way that government organizations must think about their cybersecurity in your experience?
Yeah, I think one of the lessons learned from the pandemic is that we really need to have the ability to be agile in the way we do our IT and security. I think as you've seen over the last several months, organizations quickly had to pivot from a people, processes, and technology perspective, to ensure operational continuity. The paradigm's now shifted where organizations need to ensure that their workforce can work from anywhere, anytime, and no longer just in the office. For some organizations, that remote working was a whole new world and weren't prepared. For others who had some capability for remote work, they found that the solutions they had in place simply couldn't scale to accommodate entire workforces. And in most cases, at least for the foreseeable future, remote working will be here to stay for a lot of organizations in some form or fashion. As today we're working from home due to a pandemic, but tomorrow it could be a natural disaster or a terror attack that forces us back into this situation. In addition, I think the impact of COVID has meant that many organizations had to really accelerate their digital transformation initiatives. This new norm has created many new opportunities, but it's also created additional risk and challenges that organizations need to manage. Especially considering the adversaries are certainly keen aware of our efforts and are nipping at our heels to exploit any weaknesses they can find. As we have more people, devices, and applications than ever before connecting into the networks, many of which are not secure. The attack surface and network perimeters have also greatly expanded. With breaches, they can happen in minutes, if not seconds. So it's really important that organizations have a proactive approach to do protection, detection, response at speed and scale. That's informed by timely, accurate, and actionable intelligence. Human speed is no longer a viable strategy in this environment as adversaries are increasing their sophistication in their attacks. So organizations need to embrace solutions that have high degrees of automation and integration built in. Which will also be important as many organizations now may be forced to do more with less resources going forward. And so it'll be important to reduce complexity in their environments, ease manageability, and lower their overall total cost of ownership.
As agencies are looking to transform and modernize their security, which of those elements are most important to ensure their success?
Yeah, first, we see government organizations still remain a high target for ransomware. So it's really important that these organizations practice good cyber hygiene, ensure that their workforce have good security awareness training on good practices and what they should be looking for in social engineering type attacks, such as phishing. And deploying technologies like email gateway security and sandboxing technologies to be able to detect malicious emails and attachments, and ensure that they have good backups in place, that are stored offline and that have been tested. It also ensures that they know who and what is connecting to their network environments. Next is more organizations are looking to evolve their IT and choosing to invest in cloud for its agility, ease of deployments, and potential cost savings. They really need to be focusing on solutions that are comprehensive, that can provide that visibility and control across their environment, and to be able to safeguard their applications and data in the cloud with a comprehensive security solution. They need to have integrated solutions that reduce the complexity of managing multiple solutions and vendors, and agility, and able to their IT to scale and adapt without compromise. And lastly, I think it would be ensuring that they leverage that automated response, whether that's with an EDR solution for endpoints, which are often the first point of compromise, or using security orchestration automated response SOAR technologies in their SOC. To have predefined playbooks in place that can take automated courses of action to do detection and mitigation of threats at speed and scale.
How do modern technologies like artificial intelligence bolster security?
Yeah, recently we've seen, adversaries leveraging AI and machine learning to their advantage. They're building platforms to deliver malicious payloads at unprecedented speeds and scale, and no industry organization is immune from these attacks. So to combat this, I think government agencies need to be leveraging AI-driven machine learning security solutions to essentially fight fire with fire. Organizations need to have a strategic, proactive approach that relies on having accurate, timely, and actionable threat intelligence. Actionable, strategic, tactical information gleaned from global threat intelligence networks and analyzed with AI, machine learning, and sandboxing techniques, it enables these government agencies to move to a proactive security posture. And, to achieve this, organizations should be looking for solutions that train their systems using all three learning modes of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced learning. As such, systems will become more and more accurate over time. A good example is, to keep pace with emerging threats and new risk exposures, the average enterprise now deploys 47 different solutions and technologies. All these separate tools, especially when they have individual management consoles and operate largely in isolation, it makes it difficult to correlate events and execute a consistent coordinated response to threats. And at the same time, security teams have been stretched thinner and thinner. With 65% of organizations say that they lack the skilled staff, especially as tool-specific proficiencies become harder to maintain. So not to mention, in today's environment, there's a lot more data and far more alerts that SOC analysts must review, in part due to that sudden increase of traffic from outside the network due to the remote access. This increase in traffic, resulting log files and increases the chances, essentially, of an alert falling through the cracks. Because that proliferation of advanced techs, today's compromise can happen in a matter of seconds, which means relying on that manual human intervention to perform incident response is no longer a viable security strategy. So by leveraging the right AI-driven solutions, however, especially those that include high degrees of automation and integration built in, organizations can establish and maintain a more effective and efficient security operations, all while reducing their overall total cost of ownership.
On that note, tell us about zero trust. Is it the real deal, or is it a buzzword, or is it here to stay?
Yeah, I think it's going to be here to stay. I mean, traditional security models operate on the assumption that everything inside their organization's network must be trusted. However, automatically extending trust to any device or user puts the organization at risk when either becomes compromised, whether that's intentional or unintentionally. That's why many security leaders are turning to a zero trust approach to identify and authenticate and monitor users and devices both on and off the network. Zero trust strategy shifts that fundamental paradigm of open networks built around inherent trust to a zero trust framework through the adoption of rigorous network access controls. Essentially, organizations need to know every user that's attempting to access their network. Are they an employee, a contractor, a guest, a vendor? By establishing that user identity, it requires login multi-factor authentication, as passwords can be weak and are often stolen and compromised. Certificates should be used to enforce identity and can be tied to role-based access control to match an authenticated user to specific access rights and services. Once the identity has been established, then you can enforce access policies to the user's role within the organizations. And then a least access policy should be used to grant access to only those resources necessary for a particular role or job. Similar, it's critical to identify and discover all the devices on the network, whether that's an end user's phone, laptop, network server, a printer, or a headless IoT device, such as an HVAC controller, or even a security badge reader. 63% of organizations often report that they're unable to monitor off-network endpoints, and over half can't determine the compliance status of those endpoint devices, which are often the most entry point of compromise for a breach. And so network access control provides this visibility, so the security teams can every device type, function, and purpose it has within the environment. So from there, teams can set up the proper controls of the access for those devices have. And then once the proper controls put in place, a zero trust approach and it includes that continuous monitoring, response to the devices, which helps identify and remediate any problematic devices before they try and infect other devices or systems on the network.
Thank you, Renee. That's all for now. We thank you again for your time, and we certainly will talk again soon. Until next time.
Thanks, Jeff.